This is Leisha Holmes, and I am your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, brought to you by Hoxo Media. And I am thrilled and honoured to be joined by a fellow podcaster and broadcaster today. And for those who are over on LinkedIn and potentially Clubhouse, this will be a very familiar face name to you. This is Robert Hanna, who is the founder of KC Partners and the host of Legally Speaking. And for those watching on YouTube, you can see his snazzy background. Welcome to you today, Robert. How are you?
Thank you so much, Leisha. I'm very well and I'm super excited. I love your podcast and everything you do. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm obviously off a high with everything that's been going on in the Euros tournament recently.
Absolutely. As we record this, England are poised to be in their first final for 55 years, which is still actually officially older than me. Only just, as my daughters rightly say to me, no, you're absolutely great. We're in a very exciting time as a country and as an industry. And I think the main reason that you and I connected is that clearly we've sort of elevated ourselves, apart from just being recruiters, with doing podcasts. And do you want to tell us a little bit about yours? Yours is Legally Speaking Podcast. So the clue is in the name, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own a legal recruitment firm called KC Partners, and the Legally Speaking Podcast was born out of that, really. We wanted to make sure we could communicate to our audience, our candidates, our clients, and be humans. And so the Legally Speaking Podcast started as a punt, very much 2.5 years ago. And we've learned so much along the way, but it's been a great sort of business, B2B, B2C vehicle for us. And it's helped us build a community, but it's all about trying to entertain, educate, inspire the legal world, and people who might be interested in the legal world but get scared by the thoughts of contracts and all of these terms. Just come and learn a little bit more. And we've had an array of guests. So I think we're now in 1,500 cities worldwide, top 2.5% of all podcasts in the world, and had the likes of Carol Baskin from Tiger King through to David Jones from Sky Sports to some of the world's top privacy and legal change makers. And it's just been a blast. Absolutely loved it, every single minute of it. So, but I love going on other people's podcasts. So this is why I'm here today, and I'm super excited, and I'm so happy you had me.
Oh, of course. And it's been an absolute thrill to get to know you and to watch everything that you do on social media. And, you know, this isn't just about me rubbing Robert's ego. I think you are, without a shadow of a doubt, elevating everything that you're doing in your sector. And I think it's remarkable what you've achieved. And I love the fact that it's kind of started accidentally and now it's this global phenomenon. And it's definitely, I mean, I've listened to a few and they are just brilliant episodes. And, you know, as someone that's shared Clubhouse rooms with you as well, you are a natural broadcaster, so I can see why it's been such a huge success. But we're going to talk primarily, we are going to come back to the broadcasting element during this conversation today, so stay tuned on that. But I want to kind of contextualize you as a recruitment lead, I guess. And, you know, you and I think we go quite a long way back in terms of our recruitment careers. You started during the sort of what was called the credit crunch of 2008, when the Lehman Brothers obviously, you know, created this cascade of horror across the financial world. And, you know, what do you think that crisis taught you then as a newbie recruiter? I think you were S3, weren't you? And how do you think it then prepared you for what the whole world has gone through in 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It taught me a lot of things, and it taught me a lot of the cliches you hear in recruitment to be a good recruiter. So just to set the stall, I started in S3 in 2008. The first day I walked through the door, I'm seeing people carry PCs, monitors out of the office. I'm like, what's going on? And people are screaming, Lehman's is going down. There's a crash, there's a crash, there's a crash. And of course, as a fresh graduate with no commercial office experience or anything, I'm like, okay, what on earth is going on here? And it was just my first day. I think I was being shown the database and going around saying hello to all the team leaders and managers and everything else. So that was an experience, but it taught me very, very early that, you know, you're going to have setbacks. There are going to be challenges in this industry. It can be ups, there can be downs, and you have to be resilient and you have to continue to master your craft. And I always say to people, everyone looks at the sort of now, yes, you've got a business, you're doing all this social audio stuff, you've done this, it all started as a first year flop. You know, I was a terrible recruiter when I first started, really didn't stick with it. I thought it was going to be, you know, something, I've always been competitive at sport. I've always done this, always done that. Recruitment will come naturally to me. It really didn't. And obviously I can blame the market, but as you and I both know, Leisha, you know, they're excuses at the end of the day. The quality will always shine through if you really master your craft, learn from people. So the greatest things I took from that is, okay, who is doing very well? right at the moment. So I was very proactive in reaching out to the top performing individuals within the organization just at lunchtime. What are you doing at the moment? Because I'm doing all of these cold calls, I'm doing all of these, nothing's happening for me. What do I need to change and learn? And actually, if you pick up those little nuggets, is what I did very, very early from people. Whilst I was failing, I was like, I don't mind failing, so I'm going to get grace. You know, I'm in a credit crunch. As long as I'm showing up, I'm on time, I'm professional, I'm punctual, I'm part of the team, I'm collaborative, then I'm going to get given a shot. Because, you know, there was mass redundancies when I first started. You know, half of the office just went, and so the only reason I stayed was because of my work ethic. It wasn't because I was any good. It was because I was committed and I was dedicated. And you know, to be a recruiter, you've got to show all of those good traits. But I knew I needed to get better and learn and develop. So I made sure I surrounded myself by all the top people, and I really invested myself in training and upskilling myself. And as a result of that, after my sort of 12, 18 months, then it really clicked, and then it started getting good.
You know, it's a really, really important point to make, because I think so often, and particularly up to the point of March 2020, when obviously the world totally crashed in every sense, I think you could find recruiters who'd come in on the crest of a wave, and they then thought they were the, you know, the dog's bollocks, and they really possibly weren't. And I think starting your recruitment career at possibly the you know, to me, I mean, I've got a career spanning 23 years, you know, the worst time, apart from obviously the last 18 months, tenacity and that commitment to keep going in adversity, we talk about resilience, is paramount. And actually, that's where I think if people have experienced maybe flaky recruiters or those who are just very transactional, it's because they possibly have been on the crest of a wave or have been awarded legacy clients, and you've had to graft for every single thing. I love the sort of the notion that you went in your own sort of, you know, you thought, well, how am I going to do this? Well, I've got this training happening, but actually I'm going to go and talk to them because they're billing and they're doing okay. What are you doing? And you elevated yourself, and that would have been fed back. But the osmosis effect of learning from people around you, and that possibly, you know, we can come back to that, but we've possibly lost that over the last 18 months because we've been forced to work in isolation. You can't quite get the same effect. But I love your energy when you talk about that, because you've probably learned more in that first year from supposedly failing or not achieving what you wanted to than you would have done if you'd have gone in and smashed it from day one.
And you know what it teaches you? It teaches you gratitude. I think it's, you know, I was grateful for my first interview. I was grateful for a job that wasn't even on exclusive. You know, I was grateful for just any break. And so, because it's been such a tough start. And the other thing, you know, I could wish to be the next famous footballer, but just going talking to Cristiano Ronaldo is not going to make me the best footballer. What I had to do, and I'd go and talk to these top performers and think, well, why am I? No, what's that one nugget? You know, maybe it might be a phrase on an email. It might be a phrase of questioning. Yeah. You know, that's the thing, to become a perfectionist and master your craft. It's all these little things that day by day you can tweak and improve. And even now I'm learning. I'm still learning recruitment. You know, I still do not know everything that's going on from an ownership perspective, from a running perspective, from a billing perspective, managing perspective, because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with change day in, day out. You can never, I don't believe there's a recruitment expert that exists. I think there's recruitment people that do very well, but we should always be looking at mastering and creating our craft and having that curiosity and thirst for learning. Because yeah, I mean, I've seen recruitment change massively from this transactional, where you could be transactional, you could just have a PSL and you could slam in your deals and it'd all be gravy, to now that you can't get away with that now in this community-based world that we're moving to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that curiosity and inquisitiveness are two traits and behaviors that we don't ever really talk about in recruitment. But you know what? We are the ones that will unpick and will probe and will make sure we're lifting that bonnet every single time, and we'll ask for the no all the time. And we want to know, we genuinely want to know, because that's what will make us understand you as the client or the candidate better. And that often doesn't get talked about. But I think if we're thinking about my audience is all recruiters and recruitment leaders, it's about 60% UK. The rest is Europe, America, and Pan Asia, which is very exciting for us that we've got this growing audience globally. And, you know, we've all gone through this pandemic together. We've all gone through an economic crash last year in 2020. And we're now all in a position where, generally speaking, it's the total opposite now. It's job rich. talent short, regardless of your sector. I know that legal will be the same as rec to rec, will be the same as tech, life sciences, industrial, it doesn't matter. So it's very important that people sort of think, what can I do for me in my own career, but also for my team around me. And for those, we've got to think about new talent coming through. And what Robert's just shared there is absolute gold. You never stop learning. We're dealing with people. It's ever moving parts. How can you ever say I know everything? You don't know everything.
No.
And actually, maybe we should think about hiring people who are more inquisitive and, you know, go that extra mile and sort of do that. And would you thinking about over the last 18 months then, when you look around your business, people in your company, who, you don't need to name names, but who impressed you in terms of what they did to sort of show that they could elevate themselves in an economic crisis?
And it's a great point. And just on the market point you mentioned, I've never seen a swing like it, particularly in the legal world. I mean, we've been in candidate rich markets, client rich markets. And like you say, at the moment, that swing over the last 6 months has been so significant. I don't believe anyone was really prepared for how much demand and how talent short the market would suddenly be keen, and the power shift that's happened. So that's a really interesting point, because I believe to be skilled recruiters, you have to understand the metrics of your market. You need your market knowledge. You need to know, obviously, the technical side, but you also need to know where the market trajectory is going and how you can actually then service that. But the types of people that have done well during the pandemic and impressed me are the ones that show up. You know, I think it's very easy to give up when you go through the hardest time and the most unprecedented. You know, I'm leading a business where I have zero experience of going through a pandemic. I am making so many errors from the top down every minute, every hour, every day, because I haven't been through this, and I'm trying. But sometimes when you try, it's not enough. You make mistakes. So people who actually say, do you know what? I give this business grace. I give this leader grace. I'm showing up. I'm going to give myself 110%, and I refuse. That for me is the AIE, attitude is everything. Like, I'm a big advocate of that. So not giving up was the number one thing. And then I love creativity. You talked about sort of curiosity, and sort of, for me, I would hands down in the modern market take a creative person over potentially more your traditional just going for it straight transactional view, because they can think about how they can build this brand, how they can build this community, how you can bring people to you. Years and years of recruitment have been so transactional, outbound, labor intensive, doing all of the work. We're actually someone who can utilize and leverage social audio technology, think outside the box, be creative, all of these things that build value to your market audience. I take that hands down. So people came up with some really creative ideas, bespoke to our particular industry, and it worked really well, and it kept us busy. You know, when the market was silent, when there wasn't as many jobs, we could be doing all of this stuff that's productive, that put us in a good position for when the market swings. And so now, whilst it is still a talent short market, we have been communicating and had vehicles that allowed us to activate. So we do have candidates for our clients, where a lot of other agencies are just saying, well, there's no candidates on the market. Yes, because you haven't been finding creative ways to keep in touch with the passive ones, that are the ones that are the gold that we all know make us the clients happy.
Totally true. Just a couple of points to kind of pick up on that. Show up, show up or go home, basically. Absolutely, 100%. Don't just say it, do it. In terms of the kind of pre-COVID recruiter, this is a bit disingenuous. However, the one-trick pony, you're just doing your sales call. I mean, that is so draconian. That just cannot exist anymore. And I think to have somebody who is a solution person, you want to call them creative, I call them solution driven. What are we going to do? It's thinking outside the box. I would rather have a dozen of them or one of those than a dozen one-trick ponies, because I think that everything's changed, and it leads on very nicely to why you and I connected. I think it was early on this year, although it feels like about 10 years ago.
I'm sorry, I have that effect on people.
Just the COVID effect. That's possibly also being of a certain age. But I think you have become, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the top voices in social media, and that's across LinkedIn. It's obviously across all the different digital channels, and with your podcast. And, it's just remarkable how you've done that. So can you talk us through the steps that allowed you to become this individual, this sort of broadcaster that you now are, as well as running a successful recruitment business?
Yeah, and I always believe it's important to be very open. So it's not been easy. And I think it's been easier because I own my own business and I call the shots. So I have the freedom to express myself. But comes with that, you know, I will still get imposter syndrome. I will still have people that 100% will not buy into that. You will still have naysayers, and you will still have all of these other things. But parking that aside, but I think they're important things. First thing I said to myself, I need to get over myself. I'm just a normal person. And I think actually I can use my voice to help build a community, influence and empower and inspire. So I set up my legal recruitment firm because I wanted to do things differently. I was bored of doing 10 CV send outs just for the sake of a KPI. I was bored of having to just do a lunch hour 1 till 2. I was bored of all of this stuff that I personally did not believe in. I think a lot of that still exists, and that's fine, but that's not the way I'm running my business. I'm running my business in terms of we're going to be different. We're going to disrupt a market. I'm against competitors that have been going for 30 years, who have got 120,000 more candidates on their database, who have got 100 more clients on their systems than me, who know their names firsthand. I'm just this new kid off the block that's coming out. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go to digital, and I'm going to leverage digital to the max, because I know if you do that smartly and intelligently, and you're producing value and you're being human and relatable, people are like, oh, who is this Rob person? Oh, and actually he has got quite an interesting podcast. Oh, that newsletter is quite interesting. Oh, and suddenly people start to see you emerge. And so for me, it was really about how can we be different from just doing the traditional picking up the phone, calling, putting out adverts, headhunting, all of the recruitment stuff that's been going on for dinosaurs years. What are we going to do? It's different. Why are we just another legal recruitment firm? No. So that was my main passion and ambition for wanting to do it. And as a leader of a business, you have to lead from the front. You know, I can't encourage people because it doesn't come naturally to certain people to build a personal brand. Certain people would like to be an introvert, and they just say, look, I don't want to put myself out there. I'm not comfortable with that. But, you know, no one wants to cold call initially. Nobody loves cold calling. So, you know, that's my argument is, you know, putting yourself out there is putting yourself out there as much now as it was back then in the day when you didn't want to have to cold call that person who's probably going to tell you to go away. Well, you have competitive advantage now, because if you bring something out that's valuable and they see that and engage, it's a great, easy, warm voice note or message and start conversations. So yeah, I was very, very big on trying to disrupt a market through using vehicles I didn't see exist. I have the other added leverage that I'm in legal, and legal is always behind many other industries in itself because they're so resistant to change, and even the legal recruitment firms. So it was a real chance for us to get in early and maximize on it.
Which you've definitely done with aplomb, there's no question about it. And it's something that always strikes, when I did the Hoxo Academy last year, when Sean Anderson would say, you know, we all come from a cold calling background, so you could spend, you know, days trying to get through to that one person, but if you actually put out one piece of valuable content, you could reach thousands of people in one go. And it just, when you listen, when you think about that, you think, what are we all doing? And
you can put that on repeat, and you can chop and dice that piece of content up. Whereas if you're having to re-script, your amount of times I used to have to get my team leaders re-scripting my headhunt sheet and all of these things, and it's still no. Well, you have opportunity to 10x that and multiply it, and leave it evergreen, and it can be out there working for you in the stratospheres online.
I love the fact that you used the word. I mean, it was definitely a word of 2018, I think 2019, which was disruptor. But I think that it's, rather than being disruptor, I think it's, you know, influencer, it's, you know, game changer. That's a more positive way to look at what you are doing in your sector, which I know that, you know, traditionally speaking has been, you know, quite sort of stoical in how it operates, and is probably reticent to change because it's always been done a certain way. I mean, there's probably many sectors like finance, for example, out there that are similar, but, you know, you will follow suit at the end of the day, because ultimately it's the next generation of talent that comes through in the legal sector that buys through social media. It's what we all do. So I think
it's interesting because people message me now saying, Rob, I've seen another legal recruitment firm's done that. Are you annoyed? I'm like, no, because that means we need to up our game. They're doing what we did 2.5 years ago. Right. What's next for us? How are we staying ahead? Rob, what about Green Room now? Like, is Clubhouse dead? Like, why aren't Twitter? Like, I'm so like, okay, we need to be steps ahead, because I believe in this whole way the world is going. But it's important to note that it's the culture of the business that you're in, because you could be, I know your audience is recruiters and recruitment business owners. Some recruitment business owners will say this is a load of nonsense, and and that's fair, because they might still be hitting their numbers, delivering, and and so why change? But I'm a big advocate, if you embrace change, then things can be better. And what we have done is a short-term loss for a long-term gain, because that community, once it's built and established and you foster and develop that, contacts are good, but relationships pay. And that really works in the virtual world as well, because you can turn those into long-term, really kind of customer lifetime value relationships. So yeah, it takes a bit of pain to start with, and certain businesses might be like, we don't want to do that, we're not interested in, we just want to get our deals in, we need to make sure the months and months and months and months are hitting, and that's great. But I think to really go somewhere and have impact and influence, you've got to do this stuff.
You do. And I'm going to pick up on the C word there, community. Building a community. We talked about this offline before we came on, and it's definitely one of the hottest words out there in recruitment, I think, and it has been really since COVID began, because you believe that the secret to success now for recruitment businesses and recruiters is to build a community. So why do you think that there's been such a shift? I mean, I know you've just touched on it there.
Because nobody can sell a recruitment business unless they're trying to sell a database of a load of permanent candidates. Unless you've got a temp desk of recurring revenue. It's so hard, it's so hard to, whereas if you've got a community that you're established and built up, I think that is invaluable in modern society. I think it's what people are craving. I think people want to know the humans behind the recruiters. I think they want to know who they can know, trust, and like. I think it's so important now, not only from a candidate perspective, but from a client perspective. And I do think this whole pandemic has really it's humbled a lot of people, and it's really made sure that people have come down to earth to be really human. And you know what? Oh, Rob, I always just thought you were this sort of, recruiter that is just on it all the time. But it's so nice that you've got a dog called Otto. I didn't know that. He's lovely. Also on the weekends you do that. Yes, share what you're comfortable sharing, but personal is good. Private, keep private, and be the human, so people can see what you do, not just in the office, but out of the office as well. I think that's so important now.
Oh, it's absolutely. And to me, that has been one of the best things, if you can say that. That's not being uncompassionate to people that have had a shocking time, but we have all had to sort of, I guess, become human again. And actually, that's the heart of what recruitment is about. We're creating opportunities for people to go and work with other people. So understanding what they do outside of work, and whether they've got a dog or a child or whatever it might be, that's what it's all about. And I think that's where, for me, community, we lost it. And I think we lost it because of technology. Yeah. Actually, we can use technology to create those communities again and create a sense of purpose, shared values, and do so in a really meaningful way, which you certainly seem to have done in your sector. But actually, beyond the fact that I'm connected to you, and I'm not in legal, obviously I'm a recruiter, but I think it has a ripple effect. And I think that's got to be a good thing.
I think it does. And, I think it makes the industry more exciting. So I think it was going a period of being stale. Well, now, I get to, I obviously love sales. Any recruiter has to love sales. It's got to be in your blood. You've got to want to do, either fixing clients or doing deals or making candidates. You've got to love that. Like, that's our industry. That's got to get you excited. But I also love the creativity. And I love, now we can match the two, that sort of marketing and sales, if you like, and bring it under one. And we change lives. I still get a buzz. People forget, recruitment. It's like, where do you spend the largest amount of your time on planet Earth? At work.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I'm just going to adjust my superhero cape. Hang on. You and gosh, you are saying so many things that I've said over the years. I totally, but we do change people's lives. And gosh, I am still that girl from 1998 who gets excited by getting a candidate an interview. So I know I'm mostly a sales girl, but actually, I've been in this sector as long as I have, and you've been in it as long as you have, having worked through recession after recession, because we love changing people's lives. And you create a community of people around you that you can take on that journey. You might not place all of them, but you're going to add some value. They're going to add value to you. And I do think it's quite a humbling thing that we've gone through, but I think recruitment needed to go through that. I'm sorry to say, but I think it did. I think you're right. I think we'd become so one-dimensional, and we're not now.
I think you're right. And I've never got to know as many recruiters as a result of the pandemic. The amount of recruitment, networking, lunches, getting to know, like we've connected. I see you as one of my dear friends in the industry. And so, I think it's really important that that industry has shifted. I also just want to say to any recruiters that have started in a tough environment, it is, I've not started in a pandemic, but I started in a recession. You can start in tough environments and you can still go on. And also, I do believe in self-accountability. You have to take your own self-accountability. Do not blame. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. As cliche as that is, it's so, so important. And take risks. The only reason I've got to where I have is through taking risks.
Yeah.
Starting a podcast back 3.5 years ago when no one really heard of them. Setting up a business. I started in oil and gas with 18 months. Then I moved to procurement and supply chain after 6 years. Then after no legal experience, I set up a legal recruitment firm with no legal recruitment market knowledge or experience. Like, you have to believe in yourself. You've got to be passionate about what you do. And if you do that, you'll be fine. So don't get bogged down on, if you're in a market at the moment that you hate, then you can transfer. If someone's saying to you, all your experience is 3 years in technology, there's no way you can go and do procurement. Absolute nonsense. Like, if you've got transferable skills and will, it can happen. So yeah, I just want to make that point.
We're going to be sound biting that so many times. Sounds really powerful coming from a non-rector. It's true. And everything that you've just said there is a number of points. Self-accountability. And I mean, I just forget what your job is. Recruitment, recruiter, teacher, doctor, policeman, whatever you are. If it doesn't come from within you, don't do it. And I genuinely think the reason I've stayed in this sector and will always stay, I've been tempted out so many times to do something else, probably much more lucrative than Rectorec, although I found it a very rewarding career. It's because I'm genuinely interested in the recruiters that I speak to every day. And I think that's where, from what Robert's saying there, if you're listening to this thinking, I'm placing X and I'm just not enjoying it, but I know I love recruitment, of course you can get into a different sector. 100%. Find something that you enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life. Thank you, Confucius, for that amazingly plagiarized saying, which we've all overused. I knew it'd be upbeat and I knew it'd be valuable, but my God, you've given us some amazing insights and takeaways today. So we're really grateful to you. What's coming up? Have you got any, I don't know, live events that you're going to be hosting? What's coming up for you and your business?
We've got quite a few. We've got some new guests coming on the podcast that are coming soon. We're in talks with, I think I can say it, Amal Clooney, George Clooney's wife, who's a barrister, top barrister, in talks with potentially Judge Rinder. So we've got some pretty cool stuff that may or may not happen. But if you want these guests, then you've got to go out and get them. And on the business side, like every recruiter at the moment, we're super busy. In the legal world, we do the whole raft of legal areas, so that keeps us super, super busy. And for myself, I'm embracing this social audio influencer. I believe we're in a creator economy. I believe the future is digital. I believe the future is community. I believe there's change that's needed, and I'm very happy that you said such kind words and all the recognition, because it is a lot of hard work. And you have to show up for your community. It's all well and good building one, but unless you're consistent and supportive and embrace yourself, it will go. So it is important that you do that. So that's what I would say from me. And I would just like to say thank you so much to you, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure. I knew you were going to be a superstar host. You're so welcoming. You're so friendly. You're so funny. You're so encouraging and supportive. So it's been an absolute honor to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of, I am actually blushing for anyone that's watching. I am truly blushing. That's very kind of you. And thank you for joining us today. We're really grateful to you.
My pleasure.